In this video, I want to take a deep dive into some of our level design features and show you some of the more advanced functionality that you might not know about. Now, in Leadwerks 5, level geometry is basically made up of three different kinds of objects. You have 3D models, which are a single object. Typically, these are made in 3ds Max or Blender or Maya or another program like that. And then you can import these in FBX, GLTF, or OBJ format. And of course, we also have height map terrain, but we have another kind of geometry called brushes. And these are most of the time they're going to be boxes, but they don't have to be. You can create other shapes out of them. Really quick, I just did a carve operation, and that just carves one volume out of another. And these are really good for creating your walls and ceilings and floors and just kind of the general background of the scene. And then what we typically do is we create the layout of the level using brushes, and then we'll go back and populate it with individual 3D models. So these windows, for example, these are all designed in a modular fashion. And that just allows us to get a lot of level done really quickly in a really efficient manner. You don't have to do things this way, but for my team working on our game, this has been a very, very efficient method. Now brushes, these go back a long ways, and this is a technique sometimes called constructive solid geometry. And the thing is, until recently, brush geometry would produce very blocky results. So it has kind of a distinct, if you don't do anything special with it, it has a very distinct kind of blocky look that may not be suitable for all games. However, we have some new features in it. We've added some new features to it that really take it to the next level. And, you know, we started off using this kind of stuff out of convenience, but there's actually stuff now, there's things now that I can only do with our built-in tools with brushes. And let me show you what I mean. So here's the face tool, and usually this is mostly used for texture alignment. And it's really handy for that, but we can also, in Leadwerks 5, we can subdivide faces. So I can control on the X and Y axis the subdivision here. And we have two different algorithms for if a face has 4 sides, even if it's not perfect, even if the edges are not perpendicular, that face will get subdivided into quads. If we have an object with a different number of faces, whether it's 3, or if it's a cylinder with 5 or 6 or 7 or 8, or any number of sides, then the subdivision is a little bit different here. We can subdivide along each edge like that. And then the other subdivision parameter will subdivide it radially like that. So you'll have another ring of polygons. But it works with any number of faces. It just uses a slightly different algorithm. And there's two things that we use subdivision for. For one thing, we use it for material painting. So material painting is done on a per vertex basis. So if we want to be able to paint a different material like we have in the corners here, then we need to have more vertices to paint. And so you can see what the artist did here is he just made this skirt of geometry around the perimeter. And then that just gave him a little bit more vertices. That just gave him a little bit more control, so that he could get the detail where he needed it. And then, well, this actually doesn't need to be subdivided at all. So I'll just clear that. So that's one use for it. And then another reason we would use subdivision is for tessellation. Now, tessellation and displacement has been around for a long time, but until recently, I didn't think it was really that useful. The reason for that is because it produces a lot of cracks at the seams of geometry. We have tools to prevent that problem, but tessellation, we'll get to that in a minute, but tessellation, the tessellation shader can only subdivide a surface so many times. So if we want to subdivide, if we want to apply tessellation to this surface, for example, we generally want polygons to appear about every meter or so. So again, this is used for material painting, and it's also used for tessellation, and sometimes we use tessellation with material painting. Before we go on, I just want to show you, in addition to subdivision, we can also specify an edge length, and that's right here, the edge size. If it's 0, then there's no edge, it's just one flat quadrant like that. But if we increase that edge size, then we get this skirt of geometry around the perimeter. And that has several uses. One use is to add edge bevels. So I'll show you right here. You can see how the corner here is kind of catching the light. And if I select those faces, you can see that I have a 3 centimeter edge size, so there's a little bit of extra geometry. And then I have this bevel checkbox checked here. If I remove that, then you just have this perfectly sharp edge, and it just doesn't look very good. This is what just simple constructive solid geometry looks like. It's just not, you know, there's nothing wrong with it, but it's just this sharp edge. It doesn't look that great. And then if we just have a simple bevel there, then it makes it look much, much better. What's important to point out is this is what's called an edge turn bevel. So there's no bevel in the geometry, it's just there's an extra vertex here along the edge, and that extra vertex points at a 45-degree angle, and so it gives you the appearance of a round edge without actually changing the geometry. And that's actually really convenient, because if we actually had a real geometric bevel going right across here, then in this case that would create a tiny little triangle gap right there in the floor. And when you're working with a lot of complex geometry and building levels very quickly, just those little gaps that can be created by having actual geometric bevels, that actually can become a problem. So it's just using the edge turn bevel technique. It's just a lot easier. And we generally use this, you can see we use this pretty much everywhere. I mean, this should be, every surface here should have a little bevel. And that's just one of those things, like if you're looking straight at it at one corner, it doesn't look like much, but when you apply it to your whole level, it just makes everything look a lot better. You can see also, you know, besides catching the light, you can see this creates like a nice soft, slightly curved edge here. So just by themselves, edge turn bevels are really useful, but they also work really well with tessellation. I'll show you that in a minute in a lot more detail. Let's just start over here. Okay, I want to show you a real quick example of material painting. So I'm just going to select the top here, and divide that by a few more times. There we go, that's pretty good. Okay, and I'm going to enable displacement on this. And I think that's a bit much. Let's go 4 centimeters and then -2 offset. Okay, we'll save that. And now I'm just going to paint this material onto I'm just going to paint this onto the surface. This is under debris. There it is. And you can see how that just makes details just pop out of the surface when we have tessellation applied. So to actually use tessellation, there's 2 requirements. One is, like you saw, the material itself has to have tessellation enabled. And you have to have a scale, something other than 0, because if the scale is 0, then it's just flat. Typically, you would want the scale to be, you would want the offset to be the scale times half the scale times -1. So that means that the surface will be pulled back 2 centimeters, and then it will extend to a maximum of 4 centimeters. So that puts the midpoint right at the original level of the surface when displacement is not used. So that looks really great, and I like painting this material into the corners of things. But I want to show you tessellation by itself in more detail. Now, tessellation is a feature that goes back quite a long time. Tessellation shaders have been around for some time, but I think what happened is once people realized, once people started seeing stuff like this, they kind of lost interest in it. And at that point, I think programmers and artists just thought, oh, well, this isn't something I can really use on a daily basis. I wanted tessellation to be a feature that you can use every day. I think it's really great because it allows you to easily add detail to your level, but at the same time you can also turn it off if the hardware you're running on isn't the fastest. But these problems with these cracks at the seams are a major issue. We've solved that by default. We just disable the displacement on the very edges. It's not the ideal, it's not perfect. We have better ways of handling this, but by default, it's a very reliable way just to make sure that you don't get these cracks appearing like you have over here. Now, to make tessellation appear, you need displacement to be enabled in the material. You need a scale that's not 0. Additionally, in the options, we need to have the tessellation needs to be enabled because this is a quality setting, so it makes sense to be able to just turn it off and on as we desire. We also want some subdivision in the face. Ideally, we'd like to have this face subdivided so that there's a polygon approximately 1 every meter or so, which we're doing a pretty good job of right here. So this is subdivided 8 by 4 times. Let me clear that. And you can see all the displacement just disappeared because we only have edge vertices now. And displacement by default is disabled on the edge vertices to prevent cracks from appearing in the seams. So what we really want to do here is add some, let's add some subdivision back in. And you can see it's still fading out way earlier than we would like. But we do have a way of handling that, of fixing that. We can just increase this edge size. And now we have displacement that goes up all the way almost until the very edge, and then it cuts off. Okay, so that's a big improvement, but we can still make it better. Let's give this 3 centimeters on both of those sides. And we're gonna, I think this is already aligned because this is exactly lined up to the grid, but let's just align this side to the left side, and then we'll align this face to the right side. Okay, it's already aligned, so I don't really have to do that. And then we're going to do one more thing. We're going to enable the bevel. Do you see how that changed the geometry a little bit? Just a little bit. Okay. But it's still pulling in. We have these two faces that are aligned exactly. The UV coordinates are aligned. And we have this bevel on the side. We have this bevel on the edge so that the normal is sticking out at this 45-degree angle, and that will allow, that should make it so that the displacement is going in the exact same direction. There's one more trick we can use. If we select this vertex and this edge and this vertex, we can control exactly whether, displacement is allowed or not. And if it's on auto, then if it's between two surfaces, then it's going to be disabled. But I'm just going to force it to be enabled. And now we have this nice edge that pokes out. It looks fantastic. And it's super easy to use. None of this is special geometry. I mean, the basic geometry of this is just it's just a box with the material applied to it. But when we turn on tessellation, if we have everything, if we have that edge aligned correctly, and if we enable displacement on those vertices, and if we set that bevel up so that the edge, those edges all both point in the same direction, then we get these beautiful edges. Let's see if we can shift this around a little bit. You can just see all the different variations. Some of these look really, really good when you get like a brick like this that just wraps around the edge like that. It looks fantastic. And it's really, really easy to set up because, I mean, this can be changed. If you don't like this material, you can swap out the material for another one very, very easily. And it's a really easy way to make things that look fantastic. Now I want to show you, let's see. One more little trick here. Let's say we're making some more geometry. And we've really got, if we just think a little bit about it, we've got everything we need to make geometry that just lines up perfectly and uses tessellation everywhere without any cracks, without any of the problems that we would normally have associated with tessellation. So I set my subdivision there to 4x4 for that face. And I'm just going to increase the edge size to 3. And you can see this side, you can see both here and here, the displacement is getting disabled as we hit that edge. And I don't like that. So what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to select this interior edge here. And I'm going to hide that. Okay, do you see how that just updated the geometry? Since there's no adjacent edge on this side here, then it's going to go ahead and allow the displacement to occur here. And I'm going to do the same thing here, and I'll show you the effect it has. Hide that. Are these aligned? Probably not. The UV offset here is 1.5, so I'm just going to copy it. I'm just going to set this one to 1.5 as well. And the seam goes away. Okay, so if you're modeling an L shape like this, what you really want to do is make it in 3 pieces. And that way you can just hide these interior faces. And let's enable subdivision here, go 4 times. Set the skirt to 3, enable the bevel. Set the offset to 1.5 like the other one. And we're going to grab these 3 vertices here. Force that to be enabled. Okay, so we have a gap here. So I did not align. Something's misaligned. Let's just set the alignment to all these faces to 0. What am I doing? Oh, I didn't set the bevel. There we go. Yeah, you have to have both faces have to have bevel enabled. And because I changed that, let's go back here and just set that to 0. You don't have to do this constantly for all your geometry. This might be something that you do as a very last step, but it's just so great to be able to have these tools and be able to do things like this that, I mean, I could not do this in any modeling program that I know of. And then, what do I want to do here? I think I'll just draw a new box. Okay, I know I'm going to get rid of this interior face. And then select those. And I know I want the subdivision on all these to be 4 times. Set the edge size to 3. I know I want bevels enabled. And let's see. On these corners here, I know I want displacement to be enabled. And I think this is the last one. I think this is the last surface. We'll go 8 by 4 on this. And then edge size to 3. Bevels. And enable that. Let's see. That gives me a nice edge here. Now what do I do with this interior face? Let me think about this. Let's see. That enabled. And that's enabled. Well, if we disable that, we disable that, then they just come together like that. So that's going to be my solution there. Yeah, so I can make a whole castle like this. And if I just stop and think about how the geometry, how the tools work. Is that lined up? Let's see. Yeah, it should be. if I just stop and think about how it works, then I can really create anything I want.